What's up, Misheck? This video is inspired by you. And what it is, it's basically like if I could go back in time and find myself when I first picked up this camera and give him some guidance of what I have learned in the past 5 years to try to say, hey dude, this will speed you up. Learn these things now. You're still gonna have to practice, but if you learn these, you will get to where I am very fast. So that's what this video is about, because I don't really know your level of understanding right now. I just know you have mad talent, and I want to speed up your process. I want to put you in the fast lane. So check me out, kid. First of all, you were asking about your lens. You have a 70 millimeter. I just got your email and it's static, I take it, which means you can't adjust the zoom. The first lens I bought with my Nikon was a 70 to 300. It's right here. It zooms out to a 300 millimeter, and that's what you have, a 70. And I can understand your frustration with just being stuck with 70. But one thing I remember you telling me is you was like, man, how do you get it so clear? Like when you were talking about the eye of the bird, how do you get it so clear? And I told you nonchalantly, it's the lens. And what I mean by that is the more you can zoom in to a subject, the more detail you will capture. Thus, the more you're going to believe the clarity is there, right? So if you just increase your zoom, and dude, on that river, on the boat, if you had a 300, you're going to get some fire pictures with that 300. It's going to change the game, dude. Like the first day you go out there with the 300, the game will be changed. So like I want you to get one. I don't know how we're going to pull that off, but you need to get that 70 to 300 Canon for lens for your Canon. But while we're talking about clarity, I would just like to point out that clarity isn't like the most important thing. Now, I want clarity, I do, but some of my photos that are a little soft are of poses that it's like 1 in a million pose. And sure, it's not perfectly sharp, but it's really, really, really good. Just soft. And that pose is going to look beautiful on the wall. And most of my prints, I even put on a canvas medium. And when you put something on a canvas medium, you're automatically blurring it and reducing your detail. So even whatever sharpness I had on the computer, once I printed to canvas, I lost that anyway. Well, now you made it softer, dummy. You ruined the picture. No, you didn't. Because think about this. When something's on the wall, do you walk right up to it and look at it like this? Oh, it's blurry. I mean, you know. But when you back up, or say you're coming in the hallway, like for instance, this shot right here, let's use the magic of the computer. This is my zebra right here. You see how his ears, and then he has his spike right down his snout. It looks like a cross to me. It's so beautiful. It's a little soft though. But I printed it on canvas and then we hung it at the end of the hall. So when you make that corner, you see that dude, but he is crystal clear from a distance. You know, it's like an oil painting. You know, if you get up on an oil painting, you're like, this sucks, dude, I can't see anything. You have to stand back. Wow! It's a meadow! I see it now. How did he do that? I don't know. I don't know how they paint like that. It's crazy. But your photography is the same way. Just because it's a little blurry, dude, when you print it and display it, it's going to look like magic up there. So don't get caught up on the clarity thing. Obviously, when we shoot, we want that in perfect focus, right? Every time. I ain't taking no ifs, ands, or buts. That's how our mind will work. But look, you get what you get. You tried your best. Now you're back at home. You know, you're left Africa, now you're back at home. You got what you got. Those soft photos are magical. I used to pass them up. That was a mistake. I probably have thousands of photos I've passed up, and there's something in there. Now that I say it, I need to go find it, because it's 1 in a million shots, and they were soft, and I was like, oh, it's no good. Illogical thinking. Don't think that way. It's all beautiful. Because remember, when you display it from a distance, that adds clarity to everybody. And I don't have to be far from this zebra at all for him to have beautiful clarity. So that's that. So the other thing that I need you to know, and again, I don't know your level, so I'm just going to cover all my bases here, is JPEG and RAW photo. You need to know that your camera should always be in RAW. You should always be taking RAW photos. A RAW photo file is a big file. It's giant compared to a JPEG. A JPEG is a compressed file, and it's just used for quick navigation. But if you're gonna use these photos to print on a wall, well, the RAW file has way more definition and detail in it. So if you want more detail, take it in a RAW. And you know it has more detail because it's 10 times the size of a JPEG. So if your camera isn't in RAW, pause this, go figure out how to put that thing in RAW. Okay, trust me, always shoot in RAW. So that covers that. Now the other thing that you want to know is how to use the tool itself, the camera itself. I started shooting in an automatic mode with this Nikon, and it was aperture priority, where it would, whatever I set the aperture to, and I'll discuss what the aperture is. Whatever I set the aperture to, the camera would automatically set all the other settings for me so I could just shoot, and I didn't have to think about what settings were what. And that's how I started. It wasn't until 2021 whenever I went to South Africa, and that was my first trip to African continent ever, 2021. And the whole trip I used aperture priority. Matter of fact, before I left, I went to the zoo and just tried to take pictures of zoo animals. And I was like, I got this, I can do this. And then I went to Africa and did the same thing. And it wasn't until the last camp, it was Lion Sands, and our guide's name was Rhino, spelled R-Y-N-O, like rhino, but it was pronounced Rhino. And his dad was a photographer, and his grandfather was a photographer, and now he's a photographer, and he does the guides. And he was, again, like just a brilliant tracker and everything, just super knowledgeable dude. And we first get to his camp, and the first day we're there, it's in the afternoon because we had to travel all these crazy planes just to get to this camp. And now we're on our night game drive, first time there, and we're just now meeting Reno. And he's telling me, and at the time, he had heard the leopard was in, the mama leopard was in the area, and she has a cub. So he's like, there's an opportunity that if we find this leopard, she's going to meet up with her cub, right? So it's this night, and we haven't seen a leopard this like ever in my life, like in the wild. So this is going to be my first time, and she's about to meet her baby at the same time too. Like, this is crazy cool, and we're tracking the animal. And he's telling me, you know, set your camera to this, set your that, and turn your ISO, it's like, you know, as high, whatever, as high as you can. Open your aperture all the way. That's what he told me. And he was giving me all these directions, and I'm thinking, well, I got it in auto. I don't have to worry about everything you're saying. I'm just looking for this cat. And then it happens. And I'll show you the pictures I shot, but this was all in auto aperture priority. And from that day, my brain knew we had to change. We could never be in that situation again, because those shots, I remember when I shot them and I was like, oh man, I got great shots of them. And then Reno is like, let me see what you got. And he looks at it and he's like, whoa, that looks really good. And then he says, what was your ISO on? And I was like, I don't know. It was on automatic. And then I look it up and I was like, it's like 64,000 or something. And he's like, dude, you can't take a picture on 64,000 ISO. Like, that's way too high. You can't let it go over. He said 6,000, 6,200, 6,400. Don't let it go over that. He says it looks good on a small picture there, but when you blow that up, it's going to be so grainy. So right there, that was my first lesson. Whoa, ISO is a big deal. So let's talk about ISO. And ISO is one of the three aspects of how any camera works. And it's the three aspects of light. There's ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. And if you understand how those three work and their relationship to each other, you can manipulate any camera in the world and take beautiful pictures. And you just need to know these three things. And those three things I did not know at that time in South Africa. I knew what they were, I just didn't practice them. I'll put it that way. But I still had internet and I could read a little bit more on it. But it wasn't until the last day of that camp that I told myself, well, this is the last day, it's like a bonus day, I'm going to make myself shoot manually, adjusting those three parameters this whole morning, and I've never not done that since that day. Okay? And all I've seen is an improvement in clarity in everything. I mean, you name it, everything has improved. And it started with the understanding of that. So let's go back to ISO. I took the picture of the leopard and it was super grainy because I had a super high ISO. So ISO is the sensitivity of the camera to light. It's an artificial thing that you're setting. So it's like giving your camera steroids. You know, it shouldn't have to use it. Like ISO you want pretty much as low as you can get it, like 100, 200, that's all the ISO you want. If you can take your picture at 100 or 200, then then your ISO is perfect and you're gonna have no grain. The higher your ISO goes up, the more grain you get. Matter of fact, back in the day, you had to buy film with a specific ISO. Like actual film rolls, when they put them in the camera, it was already set. You couldn't get any more light than 100 ISO if whatever that was what you bought for your film, or 200 ISO. These cameras can put 60,000+ ISO on a picture. I think mine could do 128,000. I'm serious. But you want that number low, because the lower it is, the lower the grain. Okay? You want to use natural light. And that's what it comes down to. Each of these three aspects of light all affect light. So with ISO, you're artificially adding light to the photo. The higher the ISO, the more artificial light you have added. Thus, you've increased the chances of graininess happening in your photograph. The lower the ISO, the lower the light added artificially, thus the lower graininess. It won't even have graininess if you have a low ISO. There's no graininess there. And that's where you want it. You want it within the no graininess zone. But again, you're playing with light. If you're in a low light situation, you're going to have to juice your ISO. That's just the fact. I try not to go over 3,000. like that 3200 mark, that tries, like Reno said, the 6400, I try to stay the one under that. I want to stay in the 3000s if I can, but it's difficult, especially if you have no artificial light. So that's what all these three aspects of light are. It's a balance. You're trying to balance all three of these aspects so that you satisfy them all to achieve the most clear picture you can. And ISO is a way to artificially add light to your camera. So I guess we'll pick shutter speed next. Shutter speed is how fast the iris blinks. That's your shutter speed. The faster the shutter speed, the more detail you can capture. If you have a super fast shutter speed, you could catch a mosquito's wing in instant motion with a super fast shutter speed. The challenging part of that is that the faster the shutter speed, the less light comes in. So as your shutter speed goes up, your light goes. So I would love to shoot on 1,000,000 shutter speed, but I wouldn't get any light. And I'd have to add artificial light. But when you're in wildlife photography, as we are, you don't get to add artificial light. You have to use sunlight and natural light. So you can't shoot on 1,000,000 shutter speed. But the rule of thumb, and this is from Reno the Master Sensei, he said rule of thumb is you shoot at least double whatever your millimeter is. Okay? So if I'm shooting with a 500 millimeter zoom, I need to shoot at least 1,000, 500 times 2, 1,000 shutter speed. Okay? So if you have a 70, you need to be shooting at least 140, 150. I'd say 200, really. Because 200, you're going to get some light with 200. You only start cutting out light hard in like the 2000 pluses. And really, I like to keep it at 2000, but I can't always do that. I'm definitely not going under, 1200. Not in wildlife, not at all. So that's your shutter speed, all right? And I'll show you on my camera how I adjust that. Your camera will be highly similar. Yeah, so your shutter speed, the faster the shutter speed, the less light there. The slower the shutter speed, the more light. But the slower the shutter speed, now that crisp motion starts to get softer. And how slow can you make it to where you still capture something tight and in clarity without jeopardizing blur? And that's part of the balance. Where is that at? Right? Where is that at? I'd say, don't go under 200 shutter speed, but you may have to. You might have to try to use a tripod to keep it still. One cool thing about shutter speed, and I'll just mention this just to light up your inspiration brain, is you can take a picture of moving water on a slow shutter speed. You'll need a tripod to do it. And my dad had told me about this technique a while ago, and then I saw a fountain in Italy, and we were just sitting there wasting time. So I was like, let me try Dad's technique. And you put it on a slow shutter speed, and I'll show you the fountain here. And what happens is the concrete background and the fountain itself gets really sharp because you're on a tripod. But the moving part, the water, now almost looks like it's been painted on. But that's all a natural photograph. So if you look here, you can see how the fountain has movement. But the bowl itself and everything else is sharp, sharp, sharp. And that was just my first time ever trying it. And once I saw it on the computer, I said, wow, it really did work. I had never seen it achieved before, and then I got it. So that's just something cool. If you're ever bored, you know, hey, let me try that weird technique, because I want to do mine again. I want to do it again. I think I can get a better one. So then, the last aspect of light that we must do our balancing act with is aperture. And aperture is like a little more challenging to understand. Let me get something to drink here. So aperture is the f-stop. Has to do with focus. Obviously focus, but what it is your focus field or focus depth. How much is going to be in focus? What is our focus depth? That's what your f-stop is. And the higher the f-stop, the bigger the focus field will be. Okay? The higher the f-stop, the more you'll have in focus. So, as an example, an elephant, if you aim at an elephant's eye with a small ISO, a shallow depth of field, that whole elephant is probably going to be blurry, and just his eye is going to be in focus, and he's going to look pretty funny. You have to use a much higher f-stop on an elephant, and I'm using probably like an f13 on an elephant. And that'll at least get, I know I get his whole head, and he looks nice. At least his whole head looks nice. And maybe his body will be soft depending on his angle to me, but I can get a nice head with an f13 on an elephant. So how does f-stop affect light? Well, the higher the f-stop, the light goes down. Okay? And that's why I say it's complicated, because that's weird. You think the more things in focus, the more light that would be coming in. Well, the reason that that's not the case is aperture has to do with the size of the iris. How big that iris is the aperture. And when you have a big aperture, you have a small field of focus. When you squint like this and get a small one, now you have a huge field of focus, but since the hole's so small, light can't get in. Okay, and that's the higher the f-stop, the smaller the hole, the more the light is going to be challenged. Right? The smaller the f-stop, the bigger the hole, the more light that will come in. And that's what Reno was telling me when I was when he wanted to take a picture of the leopard and the cubs, was open up your f-stop. That's what he was saying. And what he was meaning was turn your f-stop, your field of focus, all the way down so that you can get as much natural light as possible in this low light situation. So f-stop, the focus field, it's a little weird to understand, but you don't honestly mess with your f-stop too much. Like, remember, I used to shoot on aperture priority. That's when I went to Galapagos, and I was just shooting aperture priority, and it wasn't until I got to South Africa that I started using different the different settings. But aperture never changed for me. So that's what aperture is. It is the size of the iris. And you keep your f-stop. So if you want, you know, those close-up of just the subject with a bokeh background, bokeh meaning blurry, that's natural blurriness, you can add that with programs. but natural bokeh is so beautiful. No program can touch the natural bokeh. Well, you would want a small f-stop. And that's usually what I shoot on, is a small f-stop for the most part, unless I'm shooting at big animals. But I'll shoot on at a lion with a small f-stop for sure. A leopard. So that's the three aspects of light. So practice those: your shutter speed, your ISO, and your f-stop. And once you start using them, they're gonna make sense to you, and it'll start clicking faster. You just need to make yourself go to manual. Like I said, I made myself go to manual in 2021 for the last day of the camp. Last day of camp, I made myself shoot in manual, and that's all it took, and I never didn't shoot in manual from that day, and things have just gotten better. So those are the three aspects of light. Shutter speed: the faster the shutter speed, the least amount of light can get in. The slower the shutter speed, it'll brighten up my image. F-stop: the higher the f-stop, the more it's going to affect light. The lower the f-stop, the more light will come in. ISO: obviously, the higher the ISO, the more artificial light I'm adding. Lower the ISO, the least that I'm adding. So 100. All right. So once you understand, and this is my whole point about those three things, is once you understand that, now you understand how to use your tool or your brush as an artist. An artist who doesn't understand how to use his brush can never paint. But once you understand how to use your tool, your brush, that camera, with those three settings, and it becomes common to you, now you get to paint. Now you can let the artist side of you take flight. Right? Because now you're not thinking about, oh, what's this, and how do I do this, and how do I do this. Now it's like playing a guitar, but you know it so well that now you can just freestyle on that thing. And the same thing will happen with the camera. And now you can start thinking about composition. And this composition is something that you'd want to look up on YouTube, how to compose a photo, and start looking up that, because that was another thing that it took me a long time to stumble into. And when I'm talking about composition, it has something to do with cropping, and I'll show you that later on the computer. But right now, we're just talking about where to put the guy. If he's walking this way, you want to give him space over here. You don't want to put him up here on this side of your thing, because now it's weird. It's like, where's the thing? You want him coming into your photo. And that's kind of like what composition is. But look up composition of a photograph, how to compose a photo. Look that up as a homework assignment, please. Another thing is aspect. Like when you're shooting creatures, like just picture a picture of a dog, like your dog. You're shooting down on top of him, like, look, there's my dog. But if you got down there on your knees and looked up at your dog, the aspect that you're getting now is a much more intimidating one, a much more interesting one, and a much more scarier one, a much more entertaining one, because it's one that us as humans rarely see. That's what makes it so interesting. See, it's one thing to see a lion in the zoo. It's something to see something from Beverly Joubert where it's like this. Like she's down here and he's coming down on top of you, a lion. Like, the feelings that are invoked when you see something like that are crazy. So you want to try to get below their chin to kind of shoot up at them. You want to get low. You don't want to be the guy standing up shooting everything. You want to be the guy on his knee down there. Those are shots that are going to be magic. Now when it comes to birds, you can stand up for those because you don't want it to be too far under the bird. You want to be, again, right under the bird's chin if you could be. But, you know, they're birds. They're always up high. So that's something to keep in mind. You're always trying to get low to get like creature view. You know? Not human view. We got to get out of this human view. And then that horizon line behind you, you know, you don't want that cutting through your animal. You'd love it down here, like all completely off of him if you could. And that just feels like you're just shooting right through. It's so cool when you can remove that horizon line. I love it. I love it. But I think I covered everything that I can think of right now. I want to go to the computer and we'll talk about cropping. So you'll want to get Adobe Photoshop. It's going to cost you money, unfortunately, but it's well worth it. And there's plenty of YouTube tutorials online that people, like, as long as you can ask the right question about what you're trying to do in Photoshop, there will be several people who can answer you that question. But if sometimes you ask such a general question, you can't really find the answer quickly. But once you learn how to ask the right question, it's kind of like what Einstein used to say, you're asking the wrong question. But if you can ask the right question to YouTube, you can find a tutorial specifically on what you're looking for very quickly. And I'm just saying, you don't have to go to school for this. Your living room is your school because YouTube's right there for you. It's like the coolest thing ever. And that's how I have learned Photoshop. I didn't go to classes on it. I just tried to use it and then was like, hey, you know, Google, how do I do this? And then it just kept feeding me answers, and you just slowly get better over time. So I'm going to take you into Photoshop right now, and even if you don't have it, don't worry about it. The things I'm going to talk about will still apply to your photography, even through your phone and everything else, because the way you crop something is really cool. And I guess instead of talking about that now, let's go to the computer. We're in the computer now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to just show you some crops I already made, and then just talk about cropping a little more, and then at the end we'll do I'll just crop a picture and kind of talk out my thought process. So we'll just look at these real quick. Photoshop. So there we go. Alright, so I have all of the chameleon pictures opened, and this is Photoshop. And like I said, if you don't have this program, you're going to want to buy it. So we're going to go over here to our crop tool, this one right here. And I hit it, and I have mine up here. Here's the dimensions. I make 16 by 20 canvas. It's just one of the cheaper ones I can use. And so that's what this is. This is a 16 by 20 vertical. And this is what I did. So these little points of interest right here, where these crosshairs are, these are your points of interest. And this is the rule of thirds. So I want you to look up photography rule of thirds. And you can see there's 1, 2, 1, 2. Well, there's actually 1, 2, 3 going this way, and 1, 2, 3 going that way. And where they intersect in the rule of thirds is your points of interest. And just as a guide, now you don't have to do this. There's no rule that says
hey, you have to put interesting things on the spots of interest. All I'm saying is once it was brought to my attention, I started looking at other photographers' work, and they seem to put their interest in these spots a lot. Like I always talk about Beverly Joubert, I kept looking at her photos because this one camp we went to had her photos everywhere, and they were so amazing. And I kept saying, oh, I know why she put it there. I see the points of interest. And once you are aware of the rule of thirds and you look at other professionals, you find them using it a lot. Especially, man, look at movie posters. Look how they, organize a movie poster, like Harry Potter posters. They're going to have one of these points of interest is going to be the coolest part of the poster. So anyways, when we get rid of these lines, that's what we're left with. And he looks cool up there. I have him higher in the picture, so this horizontal line feels like it gives him distance right there, so he feels like he's in a tree because I have him in the top. And I'm calling attention to this, and how cool is that? So that's one crop, but I made 4 of them. And so the question is, which one is the right one? So now you can see my interest point over here is off the tail. This one's on the body, but this one is all about this nail here. We have this beautiful nail shot. So this crop emphasizes he's stuck in motion, right? That's what this one is. It's all about this claw right here. And I really like this one a lot. And again, we have the horizontal line above the midline. We have our subject in the top to make him feel like he's in a tree. Awesome. Next crop. So this one, let's analyze. All right, so point of interest is on the eye, the branch, and this is on his leg, this is on his spikes, but it's all about the eye here, right? So we come out, and boom, this eye is staring into our soul on this one. It's cold, bruh. Oh, bruh, I like this one. This one might even be better than the claw because we have this horizontal line in the lower part. So now he just feels like he's sitting eye level with us. It doesn't feel like he's high in a tree. It just feels like he's right here with us. And this eye is staring into my soul. I love it when the eye stares into the soul. I got to admit it. Next one, 4. And remember, we're trying to figure out which one is the best crop. So let's analyze the tail. The tail is our interest point. This line is called right here, gets attention called to it, the leaf. And then his nail is actually in line with one of these rule of third lines, and that's good. This is an interest. This draws interest here. And again, we're also having it here on his mouth. So it draws interest here as well. So when we remove it, remember, this is our main point of interest. That's your eye. Boom, it's all about this tail here. That's what this one is. He's still sitting high because of the horizon line is above the midline. So he's sitting high. And again, I want him to sit high. I do. Because he's a chameleon. He's in a tree. So the question is, which one of these is the best crop? You saw how they all make sense. All right, let's get rid of that, please. There. So this one has 2 points of interest. The rest are just going to have 1. Staring into our soul. So which one's the best? And the answer to that is a resounding, they're all the best. And what do I mean by that? It's that from one picture, you can crop it several different ways. And to your viewers, certain people are going to like this one with the tail more than they're going to like this one with the eye. Some people are going to gravitate to this one. Some people are going to choose this one. They're going to, oh, I love this one. And other people are going to say, oh, there's something about this one. It just grabs me, right? So they're all awesome. They all have their own way. Now, you might have your own personal view and say, man, I like this double interest the most, which I kind of do. I think it's a tie between this one and the Staring in Your Soul. But I got to say, I think this one wins for me. I love it. But again, you might look at it and say, dude, this is the one to get. That's the one. Look how close it is. And oh, bro, I love this one. Because it's all about this hand here. That hand frozen in time. So just be aware of that. You're not making one crop. Many of the times you can make several different crops and every single one of them can be sold. Every one of them has magic inside of it. And I just wanted to show you how the rule of thirds works. And it's this on your crop tool. Your phone has it, and that's what these things are. And that's why it keeps showing up on you. And it took me a long time to figure out what this is all about. So I hope that helps you out. What we're going to do now, before I let you go, is I'm just going to choose a picture at random, and I'm going to adjust it, and we're going to crop it. All right, so here we go. So again, points of interest. So it already naturally is on his mouth, right? But I want it on his eye. So we're going to go a little bigger. Yep, we're going to go bigger. Boom. And so you're going to say, oh, man, you went too big for the photo. Now it's all outside. Well, the cool thing about Photoshop is you have a way to generate backgrounds using its AI feature. So you can highlight that, and then there we go. So see, it put that in there, and it has different alternates that I can choose. Do I like that one better? That gives me blue sky. I like that one. I think that just goes on forever. Yeah, we're going with this one. All right, so there we go. And I need to adjust my image size. So before I make a JPEG of it, I want this to say 20 by 16 because that's what I'm going with. So it's going to adjust the size of the image for me. This way, when I submit it to the printing company, they don't have to adjust the size. That's already been done by me. So now I'm going to say save a copy. We're going to come down here to save as type, save as a JPEG. So this is my first crop, and it's the emphasis is on the eye. So what other way could I interpret this photo using my my rule of thirds? This one is probably done, to be honest, but we're going to get creative and we're going to see what this machine can do. So give me my crop tool again. And now, so yeah, we have interest on the eye, and then the other buffalo is right here with our rule of thirds. So that makes it a more interesting photo. Now we can try to get smaller. Kind of digging that. All right, so what I'm seeing here is naturally I can get it on this nostril in this mouth area. His horn goes in line with that. This dude's okay, but then we have this horizontal line now in line with our rule of thirds, so it looks like it's going to make pretty good sense. Let's check it out. So again, we're going to just let the computer fill in this bottom for us. Now this seems like a lot to generate, but hey, Let's see what we can do. See? And then we can choose this one. This one. That's not bad. He kind of stretches out there. I'd rather be that way. Alright, so that's our photo. Again, we need to go to image, size. Cool, so there we go. Let's print it. If it's gonna do it, let's go. Computer's slow. JPEG up. New pic. Save it in here. Number 2. So now I want to try to use this as a point of interest, and then we'll do a free crop and we'll be done. So let me get my cropping tool. Alright, crop tool. Activate. Okay, so we want to try. Okay, we're going to go with the horn. The horn makes the most sense right there. And then, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to go bigger. If I'm going to get this dude involved with this eye, I got to get it bigger. Now that's working. Let's go a little bigger. Oh, I see. I'm going too big now. You could go big enough to come here, but see how this guy's stepping here? It feels like he's pushing in here because of this line, and then I got that sitting right on my point of interest here. So that's another thing about these points of interest, is you can give your subject motion. That's not bad. All right. So he feels like he's leaning in here. I'm going with this. I like it. I like that one, I think, the best. Yeah, we're going with this. All right. So that's my shot. Now, it does feel like this guy's leaning in. I like that. So let me go ahead and save this one. So you see how this crop, it's like the point of interest part is a little more obscure. But it's still, wow, that's a cool crop, isn't it? Like, it's really cool. It feels good. All right, that's saved. Now give me my crop tool. Now I want to see if I can give this guy movement. Now it's all about this line. If he's on one side or the other, it's going to tell me if he's going left or right. I want him to feel like he's coming into the middle. So what I want to do is make it a little bigger. So see how I have it right here and he's on this side of it? Now he feels like he's going to be pushing. That looks good right there. We don't have to see that. Okay. So it feels like this leg is about to take a step. He feels like he's coming this way because my line's coming here and I have him pushing on this side. So I'm giving this guy motion. Remember, this one right here is right. That point is right on the interest. So this picture is all about this interest point, and it gives this guy motion. So he feels still. This guy feels like he's moving this way. And that's a really cool picture. I like it. Let's print it. And then we'll do one more crop. And I'm going to do a free crop that's not married to 16 by 20. And you can see what it's like to use a free crop and how free cropping is much easier to do because you can pretty much line anything you want up. And I'm going to try to line up the two horns right now activated. So maybe we can use an eye and that horn. Maybe that's what we'll do. Eye and a horn. Be cool if it was horn to horn, but those are pretty far away. So let's activate our crop tool. We're going to clear our dimensions. Go into a free crop. And this is what I'm saying, dude. You can just put these interest points exactly where you want them. My bad. There we go. Right there. I don't know if it's going to work. All right, it's going to cut his face off if I do that. So we can still go with this point of interest. So you can have his head, but I'm going to go up here because I want this more down there. So a little bigger. A little bigger. That's good. Yep. Yeah, this is cool right here. I want that eye online though. Get that eye online. Cool, cool, cool. Free crop. So this is an awesome crop right here. We got the horn as interest. We got this horn as interest. This eye is in line. His body is close. Let me save this. All right, now let's give him a little bit of motion and we'll be done. So right now, he feels like he's just standing here looking this way. But if I push this a little harder on that side of his head, now I can create movement. Get that back right on perfect. Yeah. So, and we could stretch it a little more. Let's go a little further this way. Yeah, that's what I want right there. That's cool because that's close. And we could go a little closer, I think. Yeah, this is bomb. All right. All right, this is our last crop and I'll let you go. I'm just going to show you how I'm adding motion. Let's just go ahead and clean these up. All right, cool. There we go. So because of where I put him, he is now moving into this photo. This knuckle feels like it's moving. This right here feels like it's leaning this way. This guy right here feels 100% still. But this feels like he's moving. He now feels like he's about to take a step because of where I cropped him. So I have one still subject and one subject that feels like motion, and the motion was created by where I placed him in the crop. The line's going right here between it, so this one feels like it's going that way. This one feels like it's coming in. So I'm gonna let you go now. That's all I got. I hope you learned something. I hope I've inspired you to take more pictures. I'm going to show you my camera right now and how I adjust the settings. So here's the camera. It's a Nikon D5. That's what it looks like on the back. Whole bunch of fingerprints. But if you look at the top, so all cameras are going to work pretty much this way. If you want to control your f-stop, that's this roller button right here. See, I don't have a lens in it, so it says f0.
See, it won't change, but that would change it. This one right here adjusts shutter speed. See, 640, 500. That's 1/500th of a second. And if you want to adjust the ISO, which is written right there, hit this ISO button right here, hold it, and then again it's the shutter speed button. Very intuitive. And you want that as low as you can get it. That's where I was shooting today. Pretty easy, guys. Y'all have fun out there.